On a recent whiskey hunting trip, Bill and I stumbled across this bottle right here. This is the Bulleit 12-year-old rye. So it's the Bulleit 95.5 rye, aged 12 years. It comes in at 92 proof. So when I saw it sitting on the shelf, I was like, wait a second, what is this? I don't think I've ever seen this before. Is this something new? So I was told that they used to release a 12-year-old rye, but they hadn't done it in 5 years. So I'm really excited to dive in, tell you guys my thoughts on this. We saw it on the shelf for under $60, so I had to give it a go, right? I am a big fan of MGP rye, which is what this is. This is a 95.5 MGP rye. So this one was distilled in Indiana. Again, it comes in at 92 proof. It says, our 95 rye mash bill aged in select barrels, creating a superior rye whiskey experience. So let's dive into this. Thank you guys so much for being here. Cheers to you. Let's go. Let's see if this is worth buying, if this is something rye drinkers are gonna like. I'm a big rye drinker, and lately I've been on a big rye kick. Normally I'm like all bourbon, all day, every day. But for some reason, I don't know if it's like some of the late snowfall that we've had here in Colorado or what, but I've been drinking a lot of rye whiskey lately. So here we go on this one. On the nose, there is this very distinct flavor that I'm getting on the nose that every time I smell this now, I'm like, I can't get it out of my head. It's like one of those sour apple blow pops. Like they're the suckers. They smell like green apple, candy, sweet. But then you also get some notes of like a caramel apple, and then a little bit of cinnamon and baking spice as well. It smells really, really good, like a candied caramel apple. Fantastic. I like it. I like the nose on this. Definitely like the nose. Now let's taste it. This one, right off the bat, what I first noticed is that it is very easy to drink. And it's significantly less sweeter than I thought it was going to be on the palate. Like I thought this was going to be really, really sweet because the way the nose smelled like candy and those like caramel apple, sour apple notes that I got. But then when I taste it, it's actually different than that on the palate. The palate has a lot of oakiness to it. It's a light, like a little bit drying, not overly oily, but it's super, super easy to drink. And the oak really does shine through on the palate compared to the nose. On the nose, I wasn't getting a ton of oak, but when I drank it, there's a lot more oak that comes forward, and you still get a little bit of that sour apple note on the very front end of the palate, but then the back of the palate is just a little bit more dry and has more like oak influence and sweet vanillas and caramels that go on the back end, along with some of those normal spearminty and piney rye notes that I get. And also, yes, I do get some of that green tea flavor as well. I really like those spice notes that come through on the back end that I wasn't getting on the front of the palate. It's not overly piney. It's not overly like spearminty or anything like that. Like it tastes more of like baking spices, oak, vanilla, caramel, but with a little bit more spice than you're used to getting out of a bourbon, a little bit more of that spearmint and rye flavor. So you're gonna know this is a rye, but it's super crushable. It's not overly oaky. I think this one is fantastic, actually. I really, really like this, and I'm definitely going to be reaching for this very often. I think I'll reach for this actually quite often. All right, so now it's time for me to tell you guys my score on this. And my score on this is going to be a 3.75 with an asterisk beside it because because I actually recently compared it to Scarlett Shade. So Scarlett Shade is a 14-year-old 95.5 MGP rye that comes in at about 90 proof. So it's 2 proof points off and 2 years older. And it is $200 versus the $60 for this Bulleit 12-year rye. So what is interesting to me about this is that this Scarlett Shade is obviously a $200 bottle. It is a little bit older, and overall, I really, really, really loved the Scarlett Shade. I also really, really enjoy the Bulleit. You're gonna get a little bit more refined flavor out of the Scarlett Shade than you are out of the Bulleit. Like there's just gonna be a little bit more, like there's a little more fruit in there. There's a little more oak, but it's more balanced. But what I'm trying to get at is that it's a $200 bottle. This Bulleit 12-year rye is a $60 or less bottle. So overall, I would highly recommend the Bulleit Rye over the Scarlett Shade. Even though you guys know I'm a huge Orphan Barrel fan and I gave it a higher score, I think this is a phenomenal alternative to it. And if you're a rye lover, I think you need to go out and buy this. This is definitely worth it. So that's all I've got for you today. I'm Dara, I'm your average drinker, and I'll see you guys next time.